Hello again, everybody. Skip Carey welcoming you to another day of Atlanta Braves baseball. The Braves will try to sweep the Cincinnati Reds, and they put the pressure on their pitcher, Odalis Perez. John Smoltz, a one-hitter on Friday, a three-hitter by Kevin Millwood and his bullpen last night. And Perez gets the call today against our old friend Denny Nagel. Speaking of whom, yesterday Joe Simpson interviewed him down on the field before the game. Here's the way that conversation went. Joe.
Okay, Skip, thanks. We get set for the last game of this series with the Reds, and Denny Nagel's on the mound today. And what's it going to be like going out there facing your old buddies?
Well, obviously, you try to treat everybody like your enemy, but it's always harder when some of those guys stepping in the box for some of your good friends the last couple of years. But as you know, you step across the white lines and you got to block those things out, and I'm just trying to do the best I can.
How about a train whistle right in the middle of a windup, when you got a key situation, you need an out?
I'm sure I'll be able to muster something up like that. I want to try to get more laughs out of them than they do out of me today.
Was it tough after you got over the initial shock of the trade to get settled in, knowing you're with a new club?
Not after the initial shock. I've always been one that can pretty much adjust and get used to any situation. People usually say I can make friends within 5 minutes of a new place because I have that type of personality, but it makes it easier too with a good bunch of guys we have over here. It's a really good clubhouse. The guys want to win, and we all get along well.
Well, we all miss you around here, and we wish you good luck today, although not too much. Good luck whenever you're not pitching against the Braves.
All right, thanks, Joe.
That's Denny Nagel, and we'll be back with today's starting lineups and the play-by-play story. Denny Nagel will be opposed by Odalis Perez right after this.
Braves baseball on the Superstation, brought to you by Brewery Fresh Budweiser, the official beer of Major League Baseball. By the 74,000 professionals at Delta Airlines who proudly put you on top of the world. By Jiffy Lube. Get your signature service oil change at
67 against him with one home run. Right-hander's 241. One of the things he's got to improve on today, Skip, is the leadoff batter. He's only retired 58% of the leadoff batters he's faced each inning, and that's come back to haunt him.
Mike Cameron leads it off, hitting at 284, and the first pitch is fouled away. We're going to have a crowd of 44,000 or thereabouts gathering at the ballpark. Cameron came into this series hitting .311. Greg Bonet, the home plate umpire, with Jeff Nelson, Frank Pulley, and Charlie Williams around the bases. The 0-1 pitch. Evens it up at a ball and a strike. All the other baseball a little later on this afternoon. We'll keep you up to date on it as we go along here today. He shortened the bunt, took it low, 2 balls and a strike. Odalis, in 18 2/3 innings, has struck out 14, but he has walked 10. That's a high number. Put that with 15 hits, and that's quite a few base runners.
Yeah, and the Cincinnati team is really struggling. They're last in the league in hitting average-wise. And, of course, in the last couple of days, their runs per game average has dropped, too. Mike Cameron came in a pretty hot hitter, but he's 0 for 7 with 3 strikeouts. And here's what the rest of the Reds team has done in this series. 4 hits and 57 at-bats. And as you see there, 2 of those belong to Eddie Taubensee. He's not in the lineup today.
That'll show him getting that many hits.
Yeah.
2-2 the count. There's a good start for Perez. There's a leadoff man retired.
Good change-up, and a troubling stat for Mike Cameron continues. That's 27 strikeouts and 82 at-bats. That's way too many for a leadoff batter.
And 15 strikeouts of red hitters in this series for the Braves. As Barry Larkin comes in, he's down to 193. 4 homers, 12 RBI. A little bit high, 1 ball, no strikes. Another breezy day in Atlanta. Wind is blowing in today. 1-1 is the count. Greg Bonet, an excellent ball and strike umpire, but you got to wait a little bit for him.
And
Very deliberate.
And don't spend too much time arguing with him about it either.
Yeah, that's true. Strike 2 called over the outside corner, a breaking ball. 1-2 the count.
They're resting Sean Casey, who's been their hottest hitter. He gets a day off, and when you know it, for Hal Morris, his second start of the year, he used to face a hard-throwing lefty.
2-2 the count. The pitch. Pop fouled away. Just fought that one off to stay alive.
And remember that Odalis pitched perhaps his best start of the year earlier in this homestand against the Pirates, and probably went an inning too long. He had pitched great through 7 innings and then ran into trouble in the 8th. Bullpen couldn't hold the lead. He lost 5-3, but he went 7 2/3 innings, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. There's the line.
And here's the 2-2 pitch. A little swinging bunt out in front of the plate. Javi, good play. 2 out. Larkin is retired. And Hal Morris, the batter. I'm not going to say much about it. Joe might want to, but as you watch this fella hit, watch his feet. It's unbelievable. He does a little samba as he gets ready to hit the ball.
Happy feet, as we have called it, but the guy can hit. A career major league hitting .306 average. And hit .309 last year for Kansas City. Reds signed him as a free agent.
You wonder how long his tenure will be with the Reds. He's another guy that as the season goes on, a contender might, unless the Reds are one, contender might covet his services. The 0-1. 1-1 the count.
He starts deep in the box, but he doesn't end up there. He's rubbing out the back line of the batter's box. But as the pitch is being delivered, he's walking towards the pitcher.
Right in there, 1-2. So Perez looks very sharp in the early going. The 1-2 pitch, here it is, into the dirt. It's even now. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Game time temperature 66 degrees, and that wind is gusting straight in from left field again. And as a result, Gerald Williams playing way over near the line in left field and not very deep.
2 balls, 2 strikes. Missed for the breaking ball. Full count now, 3-2. Morris, a good hitter, not a powerful hitter, and he's he plays a power hitting position. Sort of more in the Mark Grace role.
But he's always been up near the top of the league leaders in hitting. He was 15th in the American League in average last year.
3 balls, 2 strikes. Payoff pitch. Just missed outside. Perez, ahead in the count 1-2, loses his man.
A 3-2 breaking ball too in the first inning, with things cruising pretty good. A kind of a surprise call to me. Guy hasn't been playing much. That'd be a good time with nobody on and 2 out to find out if he can hit your fastball 3-2, and you got to throw a strike.
Greg Vaughn, the batter. Vaughn at 211, 4 homers, 13 RBIs. High, 1 ball, no strikes. So all of a sudden, the control bugaboo begins to bite Perez.
Well, it's just that it almost appeared that they were going for the strikeout instead of just the out with Morris. And with Greg Vaughn batting behind him, that's dangerous.
Up the middle, Boone had him played perfectly. Just in time, and the inning is over. What a play by Boone and Weiss. A bang-banger down at second base. But they get the force, and the inning is over. No hits, no runs, no errors, 1 left. Bottom of the first, no score.
What is your name?
Things will work for Indianapolis. 8 hits, 7 runs, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. But he's been a 16-game winner each of the past three years. 16 games or better.
Speaking of Indianapolis, they're at Toledo today, and Mark Wohlers is scheduled to pitch in that game. We'll try to keep you up to date on how he does, if we can. The 1-2. Little looping pop fly, foul territory. Morris on the run. Can't get there as he bangs into the target. It's still 1-2.
As you probably recall, Denny is not overpowering, but he can be very effective pitching to the inside part of the plate to a right-handed batter, as he just did to Gerald there. But his stock and trade is a good changeup.
Now I have some balloons drifting over the field. The pitch. Swung, hit hard, and fair into the left field corner. Gerald around first. He's on his way to second. He will pull in there with a leadoff double. He curled it right inside the line. So, good start for Atlanta.
Maybe Gerald was looking for that changeup because he did kind of reach out and pull it. Looked like it was away from him, but it was up, and that was the difference. And Brett Boone's brother, Aaron, who's playing third base, couldn't make the diving stop. In fact, it tipped right off the end of his glove.
A good start for Atlanta. And now Brett Boone hits. So here are the major components in that trade face to face.
How about that?
I was thinking driving in today. Pop foul back and out of play. I know that's news in itself, but what I meant to say was thinking what a shame it was that Boone and Nagel couldn't have ever been teammates, because they have personalities that are I think they'd get along extremely well. They both have a very active sense of humor.
Yeah, they would have enjoyed each other a lot.
The 1-1 pitch. A little low, 2 balls and a strike. Gerald Williams has excellent speed. He's running at second.
Brett's very cerebral about his baseball. He's very into it, and as a result took up shop in his locker right next to Greg Maddux. They have some very in-depth conversations at times about baseball.
He's got the old Blauser locker, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
2 balls and a strike.
See if he still tries to go to the right side.
Yes, he does, and it's a base hit. I don't know if Williams can score. Oh, the ball is booted. Here he comes, and the throw will come to second. We'll see how they score it. It's a base hit. I don't know if it'll be an RBI, because they were going to stop him until Cameron booted the ball.
I think the official score has to take that into consideration. I think he's got to be watching the third base coach to see if he was going to wave him around anyway. And in this case, Ned Yost was going to stop him. Until this happened, Cameron was in a hurry, and it rolled right up the edge of his glove.
Yeah, and it is no RBI. It's an error on the center fielder to allow the run to score. And Chipper Jones, the batter.
Cameron's second error of the year.
Strike to Chipper over the outside corner. Chipper becomes the first Atlanta or Milwaukee Brave ever to hit home runs right-handed and left-handed in a single game. It did happen in Boston, but more about that later. The 0-1 pitch. Looped fouled on the right side. He's quickly in the hole.
We had that conversation after last night's game about those home runs, and I talked to him a little bit more about it this morning. And he's so excited about what he's doing right-handed and the fact that he's driving the ball. And he said, I just have to give more and more of the credit to Don Baylor. He said, but I'm really happy with the way things are going.
Line drive, left field base hit. Runners at first and second, and not such a good start for Denny Nagel in his old hometown. Brian Jordan, the batter.
He tried to work the inside part of the plate to Chipper there, and solid line drive pulled. Yesterday, though, Chipper only had to trot around the bases a couple of times. He never was really forced to have to move much at third, and he didn't have to run the bases as he's going to have to do now. So we'll keep an eye on him to see if that ankle's still bothering him and that strained muscle in his leg.
Braves have a chance to break it open early here. Run in first and second, nobody out. Down low, 1 ball, no strikes.
We've been enjoying the rivalry between these two teams with so many players that have changed hands. Tomorrow the Cardinals come to town. It'll be Brian Jordan's turn for that.
1 ball, no strikes. Outside, 2-0.
That's a great stat. Good one, Phil. So important to your pitching staff to get an early lead and be allowed a mistake or two.
High pop. Who wants it? Reese now makes the catch. Infield fly rule is in effect. Larkin was after that ball and gave way in a hurry. 1 down.
I think Reese just glanced up when the ball went up and started watching Larkin, and then when all of a sudden Larkin started looking at Pokey said, "Oh my gosh, this ball's coming back to me." Wynn pushed it over to him and he made the play.
Fortunately, he didn't have to move. He blew it right to him. Javi Lopez, the batter. He hasn't had a whole lot of luck against Denny in his career, 3 out of 18, but one of those hits a home run. He's really going to have to mash one to hit it today, the way that wind is blowing.
He's got a guy that hits into a lot of double plays at the plate. If he can get out of this inning with only 1 run being scored, then he'd be very happy.
Fouled away, 0-1. Into the club level where it is dropped and then recovered.
Don't you think Denny's at a big disadvantage today? In so much as Leo Mazzoni knows how Denny likes to work. Javi Lopez certainly knows how he likes to pitch to hitters, especially in situations like this. They know what he throws.
Well, I know he pitched well against the Pirates when he came over to Atlanta, so. 0-2 the count.
You know, Ernie Johnson always had that theory, right? That catchers ought to be able to hit pitchers that they had caught before because they knew their stuff.
I think that was Pete's theory.
Was it Pete?
Yeah.
Steve Avery certainly had some success, but it was a different type of Steve Avery in Game 1.
Reese jockeying in behind the runner at second base. 0-2 the count. There's a drive into deep left. That ball is socked. That ball is off the wall. 1 run is in. Chipper will have to stop at third. Javi pulls into second with a double. On another day, that's gone. It rattled off the 380-foot side. It's 2-0. And Andrew Jones, who's 4 out of 6 with 2 homers against Nagel, is the batter.
Too good an 0-2 pitch. Looked like another changeup, very similar to the one Gerald Williams hit. Javi one-hands it off the 380 sign, and maybe on a different day when Chipper Jones' legs feel better, he might have scored from first on that play too.
Brian Hunter moves on deck. Andrew at 286, 5 homers, 20 RBIs. He's got a chance to add to that total here. Infield back, willing to concede a run for an out. Line down the left field line. On the run is Vaughn. He dives, makes the catch. Because he dives, Chipper is able to score, and it's 3-0. That ball was hit pretty well. Sacrifice fly, RBI.
You said something about Greg Vaughn yesterday, Skip, that's so true. Most people think of him just as a slugger. Just to show you right here that he's more than that. Very good defensive play that saved extra bases. Certainly saved at least 1 run for the time being. And another RBI for Andrews.
Excuse me. If he was able to keep his feet, though, he might have been able to keep Chipper from scoring as slow as he is right now with his injuries. Brian Hunter takes a little low. 1 ball, no strikes. Brian was swinging such a hot bat. Bobby wanted to get him in there just to try to keep him hot.
He had a great road trip. Then when we came back from the road trip, Brian Klesko returned to the starting lineup, as you know. But Hunter was 7 for 16 on the trip. That's a .438 average, and he had a homer to boot.
Runner at second. 2 out, 3 in. A wide strike there. A ball and 2 strikes.
Tough to cover plate on that one. He's also swung the bat well, as you see, when he's been in the lineup.
The 1-2 pitch. Strike 3 called, inning over. Brian didn't like that one either. But a good inning for Atlanta. They scored 3 times and all the runs are earned. They come on 4 hits. There was an error in the inning and a runner left. At the end of 1, Braves 3, Cincinnati nothing. We go to the second inning here. Jeffrey Hammonds will lead it off, then Aaron Boone, then Brian Johnson against Odalis Perez, who's been staked to a 3-0 lead. Well, he's got to pitch to keep up with his mates. He's got to pitch either a no-hitter or a 2-hitter today.
A lot of pressure, like you talked about, but he's off to that good start and he's throwing strikes, and that's the key for him. He throws hard enough to throw the ball by hitters. It's just that sometimes he gets a little too careful trying to work on the corners. And even on that full count in the first inning, he needs to come back with his fastball and make him hit it.
Hammonds hitting just 167 for the year. We've talked about all the connections between the Braves and the Reds, and one guy we neglected is Ken Griffey Sr. He played here for a couple of years after a great career in Cincinnati and with the Yankees. There's Big Ken. What a player he was. 0-2 the count.
Tough out. And for a big guy, he could really run.
I remember they took him out of a game last day of the year when he was with the Reds. This is a story. They like us to tell stories. And whoever was Bill Mavok. Strikeout to start the inning. Hammonds is out of there. Second strikeout for Perez. Bill Maddock was still in the game for the Pirates and went 5 for 5 or 6 for 6 or something. And Griffey had like a 6-point lead or a 5-point lead in the batting race. And he started the game and he didn't want to come out, but they took him out. And then the Braves rallied to tie and he couldn't get back in the game, and Madlock got the hits and won the batting title. He was not a happy camper. And I don't blame him.
That's
1 ball, no strikes.
Horrible way to go down.
Yeah. Aaron Boone hitting just 156. Like his brother, he's out of Southern Cal. He's a little bigger than Brett. And he corks that ball to deep center field. Andrew Jones at the wall holds it in. The wind saved Odalis Perez there. 2 out.
Tough break for Aaron Boone, who did hit that ball solidly. He's been on the shelf. He's been ill and out of the lineup. And it looks like he's just getting his strength back, and with the wind blowing in, that certainly did save Odalis. He hit that ball well.
Brian Johnson is the batter. 2 out, nobody on. Strike called, outside corner.
There have been other controversies surrounding batting titles. I remember one year.
Good play by Chipper. We'll talk about it. Well, nope, he bobbled it. Good call. You can see it from up here. Brian made a good play on the ball, but he smothered it against his chest and it sort of popped out. That'll be an E5.
Yeah, they were watching to see if he gained control of it before the runner got there. And even though it looked like the ball came into his glove before the runner got there, he's safe. Error on the third baseman.
And Pokey Reese is the batter.
But I remember Willie Wilson sat out the last day of the season and won a batting title, I think, over Ricky Henderson. The reason I think it was Ricky Henderson is because Billy Martin was irate about it. Ricky's manager in Oakland.
Well, what had Griffey upset was he wanted to play and it insisted on playing. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to earn it. And then he was like being handcuffed when they took him out. They had a pretty substantial lead. They were the big red machine and we were horrible. And we rallied and tied. I think we played about 16 innings. That was in 1976. Was that a good enough story, Glenn? Yeah.
The 2-0 pitch popped up. Let's see if it stays in play.
Javi battles the wind and makes the catch. Good play. I don't think I've ever seen him drop one of those.
No, me neither.
The inning is over. No hits, no runs, an error, one left. The end of an inning and a half. Your score: Atlanta 3, Cincinnati nothing.
Hey, Jeff, what you doing?
Just buying a ticket online for my golf trip this weekend.
Whoa, Mr. Computer. Is the phone too low tech for you?
No, but if I book online,
1-800-700-CHOP now to subscribe to the official monthly magazine of the Atlanta Braves. And we go to the bottom of the second.
Glenn ate all the bacon in the press room. He was just about. Had a plate full of it.
Pitch is outside to Walt Weiss. 1 ball, no strikes.
Just get there early or don't get any today. Glenn was concerned.
2-0 the count. Well, we've set his career back another 5 years. Let's get back to the game. The 2-0 pitch. Weiss grounds one just foul past third.
Denny's problems in the first inning were mostly from location. Watch how many of these pitches are up in the strike zone. Chipper got a pitch inside that he turned on. Javi a high change up. And Andrew, even though he might have been fooled a little bit too, pitch was up and he was able to deliver a sacrifice fly.
2-2 the count to Walt Weiss. 3-0 Atlanta is our score. Boy, a beautiful day. Not a cloud in the sky. Oh, good pitch there. Got him with a change of pace. Weiss is retired. Nagel's second strikeout, and they have come in succession.
See where this pitch is, because it was up too. But Weiss swings right through it. Good delivery on that by Denny.
Odalis Perez against the left-hander. He's 0 for 6. Into short left. Vaughn battles the sun. 2 out.
Despite Denny's troubles in the first inning and he's behind 3-0, he has always liked pitching in this ballpark. At Turner Field, a 19-4 career mark.
Gerald Williams is the batter. He doubled to get things started in the first inning. Foul to the screen. It's 0-1.
Braves have pretty much had the Reds' numbers in recent years too, Skip. They've won 18 of the last 22 meetings between the two. And talking to some of the Reds people today before the ballgame, they say it's almost like no matter how well the Reds are playing coming into Atlanta, they do not perform well here and haven't in recent years.
Boy, things used to be different. 0-2 the count. Larry Walker's had another home run. Colorado on top of Pittsburgh 1-0. His 6th of the year. A ball and 2 strikes.
This is where he made a mistake to Gerald last inning on a changeup. They're going inside instead.
He pops it up, but the wind may blow that out of play, and it could.
Did that bounce off the top of Bobby's head or off that concrete over there?
I think it was a concrete, Joe.
I hope so. Is he still on his feet in the dugout? That was right where he was standing. Yep, he's all right.
He vacated the scene.
Good.
1-2 the count. What are you trying to say? He's a concrete head?
He had that little beanie on top of his hat permanently embedded in him if it had.
Line down the left field line again, but foul this time. It's still 1-2. 3-0 Braves. Brett Boone would be next, but there are 2 out in the inning. Everybody's ready. Got him with a slider down and in, and the inning is over. And Nagel has struck out 3 men and works a 1-2-3 second. We go to the third. Braves lead it 3-0.
We go to the top of the third inning with the Braves on top 3-0. Time for today's Aflac trivia question. Skip teased this a minute ago for you. Who is the only Brave before Chipper Jones to hit home runs from both sides of the plate in a game? And the hint is he played for the Boston Braves. We'll give you the answer in the bottom half of the inning.
And it is not Ernie Johnson. Nagel gets a good hand as he stands in. Then he's a pretty good hitter. Better against right-handers, of course. 3-4-1 for Atlanta, 0-0-1 for Cincinnati. Threw the fastball by him. He had a home run cut. It's 0-1. The wind is just about stopped now. Ground ball to short. Walt Weiss digs it out, throws him out, 1 away.
The rodeo's not in town, but there's some cowboys that are. Today over in Ted Turner's box, foreman from his various ranches out west, all here to take you in the ball game and have a good weekend.
So those are real cowboys.
Real black cowboys. Got the blue jeans and boots on. Bill Shaw's over there with them in the owner's box. At the ballpark probably beats riding the fence line today.
I would think so. 0-1 the count. He went around. The count goes to 0-2.
The way Bonet was pointing, I thought it had hit him. But Cameron's struggling, so it's just almost automatic that it's a 0-2 count, no matter when you go up there, what time of day it is.
He struck out his first time.
Which makes 4 strikeouts and 8 at-bats in this series.
I remember the first 2 times up, he almost hit home runs to the outfield. Way outside, nowhere near. 1-2 the count. Phillies lead the Dodgers today. 1-0 in the first. St. Louis 3 in the first at Montreal. Boy, Montreal. It's a real miss.
I didn't see their attendance yesterday, did you?
No, I didn't.
Check on that. There's something else, though. The Sunday paper, of course, a list of all the batting averages in both leagues, and some surprising names at the bottom of the list. In the National League, Ron Gant hitting 132. Ruben Rivera of San Diego just above him. Bobby Bonilla and Todd Hundley just above that. Wow. In the 150s.
Strike 3 called. Cameron out of there on strikes again. Third strikeout for Perez.
He's sharp today. That looked like a changeup. And a beauty. Cameron's struggles continue. Over in the American League at the bottom of the list, last year's Rookie of the Year, Ben Grieve hitting 132. Then Royce Clayton of Texas.
Who just went on the disabled list.
Yeah.
Barry Larkin is down there too. He's at 190.
Just above Clayton is Bobby Smith, former Braves property. Then Delino DeShields and Charles Johnson, both of Baltimore. Know some guys that are hauling down some pretty good coin with more expected from them, struggling.
Three 3-0 the count. So after getting the first 2 outs with ease, in fact, in each inning, 2 outs, a walk in the first, 2 outs, an error in the second, and now a 3-0 count with 2 outs in the third. There's a strike. It's 3-1. No box scores, huh? pitch. Right in there again, 3-2.
And a box score of 19.
Fernando Tatis, 3-run homer. That's how the Cardinals got that 3-0 lead. He hit it off Miguel Batista. Right at Andrew, and the inning is over. 1-2-3, nothing doing. Good comeback for Dallas there. We go to the bottom half of the third inning. With your score, Braves 3, Reds nothing. Brett Boone leads off the bottom of the third for Atlanta. He looks at a breaking ball low. 1 ball, no strikes. Brett singled up the middle his first time. We'll give you that Aflac trivia answer in just a moment here. 2-0 the count. Upstairs, 3 balls, no strikes.
Walk's usually not a problem for Denny. He has not issued a free pass today. 3 in his first 12 innings of work since coming back from the DL.
There's a strike. 3-1 the count. Phillies 2 in the first against the Dodgers, and they're still batting. Full count now, 3-2. Cardinals come to town tomorrow. We found out the attendance, by the way, in Montreal on a Saturday night with Mark McGuire in town. They drew 11,172. See you. The 3-2 pitch. Line, center field, base hit. Moon's 2 out of 2. Continues his good work with the bat. And here's Chipper. He singled his first time.
All right, now time for our Aflac trivia question answer. The only other Braves player to hit home runs from both sides of the plate before Chipper Jones, Jim Russell, in June of 1948. He played for the Boston Braves from 1948 to 1949, 2 years.
Okay. Strike call. I do not remember Mr. Russell. 0-1 the count.
Had a good night in June of 48.
Yes, he did. Runner at first, nobody out. Good breaking ball. This time Nagel's out in front, 0-2.
Chipper's he's had such a good swing from the right side, including his home run last night was driven to right center. Let's see if he's thinking the same way here.
Down in the count, 0-2. Runner goes, hit and run, single to right. Perfectly done. The ball is going to stop just about before the right fielder gets to it. Perfect hit and run on an 0-2 pitch.
That was nice. Sometimes on a ball way out away from it, you got to throw your rear end out a little bit just so you can reach over, check Chipper out. Part of you goes backwards, the rest of you goes forward. He hits it right off the end of the bat. Nicely done.
You ever hear the phrase in baseball, 19 hopper? That was it right there. So they're on the corners with nobody out as the Braves try to add on here. And Brian Jordan will be the batter. Jordan popped out his first time. A little bit inside. He's just missing. 1-0.
That's a pitch he needs to set up his changeup. He missed. If he's going to miss, you want to miss inside off the plate, but he really wanted to strike there in hopes that he could get Jordan behind in the count and get him to hit a ground ball. But we've already talked and have seen Brian be a tough hitter behind in the count.
Didn't get that one. It's 1-1.
You were talking about that St. Louis and Montreal series, Skip. Bernie Miklasz, who's a very good writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, is already in town here because he wanted to watch Brian Jordan play a couple of days before the Cardinals came to town. He said he chose this over going to Montreal.
The 1-1 pitch. High pop into short left field. On comes Vaughn, still coming. He's there. He's got it. Run will not try to score. They do draw the throw, but Boone wisely stays at third base. Here's Javi. He doubled his first time. Banged it off the 380-foot mark out in left field. First and third, one out. A double play now gets him out of the inning. Nagel ready to go to work.
Javi delivered behind in the count last time up. Got a gift from Denny that was up. Let's see if they try to start him the same way they started Jordan, inside.
Throw to first, Chipper back easily. The wind has picked up again, and it's still blowing in. A lot of room on the right side for Javi. You know Chipper won't be doing any running with his bad wheel. The stretch pitch. Way outside, 1-0. Scott Sullivan up and throwing in the Cincinnati bullpen. Denny keeps flexing his arm a little bit too. I don't like to see that. I hope it's not bothering him.
You know, he came off a game against the Phillies where he was outstanding. Shutout baseball over 6 innings. Matched up with Kurt Schilling.
Line fair into the corner. A run is in. Chipper's going to wind up at third. Javi's going to wind up at second with another double. And it's 4-0. And that ball was smoked too. You mentioned last night he had been struggling and was getting better swings, and you're right on top of it again.
Well, last night it seemed like he was actually trying to keep his hands inside the ball, and he had a ground out to second that really looked good. And maybe that helped him tonight stay on the ball a little bit longer. Even a two-handed swing on this one on an off-speed pitch out away from him.
That's going to do it for Denny Nagel. With the score 4-0 and runners at second and third, they've already signaled to the youngster in the bullpen. So Denny's return to Atlanta is not a pleasant one, and he gets a good hand from the crowd, and I'm glad to see that as he departs. Second and third, one out. Manager Jack McKeon has made the Bell South call to the bullpen. Scott Sullivan 2-0, a 2.35 earned run average on to pitch for Cincinnati. The line on Denny Nagel, not a good one. 2 1/3 innings, 7 hits, 4 runs to this point. The 2 runners aboard are his responsibility. No walks, 3 strikeouts.
Those 2 wins for Sullivan have come in his last 4 appearances. He's done a good job out of the bullpen over his last 5 outings, 13 innings and only a 1.38 ERA. And he'll be asked to do what he's been doing. That's hold the opponents and give the Reds a chance to catch up. Last year, he led all major league relievers with 102 innings pitched.
Andrew Jones will be the man he first faces. Andrew drove in a run, his 21st of the year with a sacrifice fly, his first time. He's only 1 behind Brian Jordan in the RBI race.
Well, he kills the Reds. I mean, the numbers Andrew has put up against Cincinnati are absolutely remarkable. He has an RBI today. Last year, he was 12 for 36 against the Reds with 7 home runs last year. And in his career, he has 25 hits against them, 13 home runs in those 25 hits.
Infield in, and he popped him up. Pokey Reese calls for it. That hurts. Reese makes the catch, and the runners are still at second and third. So it's up to Brian Hunter, a strikeout victim his first time, if the Braves are going to do any further damage here.
Brian had some tough pitches called on him his first time up when Nagel got out of the first inning.
Fired him down and in. 1 ball, no strikes.
Good sinker, good slider from Sullivan. Dropping down, sidearm to a little submarine.
Almost a wild pitch. A good play by Brian Johnson, the catcher.
Very athletic catcher. Quarterback, college at Stanford.
Sullivan out of Auburn University. Three and 0. Walt Weiss is next. See if they turn Brian loose here.
Auburn's where Jonathan Sherholtz is headed.
And where Greg Olson, the pitcher, hung his hat in college. Jonathan Sherholtz might be headed there. The way he's playing might be a relatively high draft choice. The 3-0 pitch. He walked him on 4 straight. They're loaded for Weiss with 2 out. That's the first walk of the day for Reds pitchers.
How would you like to be the scout ringing on the Sherholtz doorbell, going over to negotiate that deal after drafting Jonathan?
That's an interesting thought, isn't it?
How would you like that?
No, thanks.
Situation.
Sullivan out of Carrollton, Alabama, lives now in Livingston, Alabama. The pitch. Up foul back. He's ahead in the count, 0-1.
Yeah, he got in on Walt. If you're left-handed, you pretty much have to make sure you have the outside part of the plate covered on a guy who's got a good sinker and throws sidearm like this. And Walt, as a result, he was right up on top of the plate. He might even be out of the batter's box.
The 0-1. Popped up. On the infield, that'll end the inning. Braves had a chance to put him away, couldn't do it. But they get a run out of all that on 3 hits and leave 3. At the end of 3, 4-0 Atlanta.
Let's take a look at the Office Depot scoreboard. 6 games underway. St. Louis has a 3-run homer from Fernando Tatis to take the lead in Montreal. Philadelphia leading L.A. 2-0. Glanville has homered there. Pittsburgh on top of Colorado despite a Larry Walker home run. Giants and Mets no score after an inning and a half. In the American League, Delano DeShields led off the ball game for the home run for Baltimore to put them on top. Detroit has 4 in the first at Tampa Bay. That's the only action underway right now. Log on to CNNSI.com for in-progress box scores and up-to-the-minute batting averages. That's CNNSI.com, the ultimate address for sports.
That's CNNSI.com, the ultimate address for sports.
You can find a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, CNNSI.com. We go to the 4th inning. Hal Morris will lead it off. This is Denny Nagel's shortest outing as a starter since July 15th, 1994, when he went only a third of an inning against Houston.
He didn't seem comfortable today.
No, he didn't.
I think you were right about him trying to get loose out there, and I don't know how much this wind had to do with that, if it was keeping him from really getting loose, but just didn't seem comfortable and had a little bit of trouble getting the ball down at times with his changeup. Hopefully he's okay.
Hal Morris leads off the 4th. He walked his first time. Boy, it is blowing a gale in now. Outside, 1 ball, no strikes. Joe's got a real nice looking coat in his car at the parking lot. Down the left field line, trouble if it's fair, but it isn't. Detroit leads Tampa Bay 4-0 in the 2nd inning. Baltimore 1-0 over Minnesota in the 2nd, as Joe just told you. Details on CNNSI.com. They want promotion, they get promotion. Anything they want, we give them. 2 balls and a strike. Stayed inside. It's 3-1 again on the left-hand hitter.
Throughout his career, Hal Morris has always been an everyday player regardless of who's pitching, and you can see that even when Perez drops down a little bit, throws that breaking ball, Hal never flinches.
There's the first hit, a solid rope into left. So Morris is aboard to start the 4th.
Problem for Hal is Sean Casey, who's playing great. driving in a lot of runs for Cincinnati. Hal might have to start taking a few fly balls, figure out a way to get in the outfield and get in the lineup somewhere.
Vaughn hit into a fielder's choice his first time. Runner at first, no one out. It's 4-0 Atlanta, but the Braves had a chance to break it wide open in the bottom of the third and failed to do so. 1-0 the count. Brian Hunter in for a word with Perez. He may have spotted something in his delivery, or he might be talking about whether or not to play behind the runner at first. Now they're going to hold him on. There's a drive, but foul. Boy, he socked that ball. But way fouled on the left field line, and even as hard as he hit it, he broke his bat.
About that. He has a very short, compact swing. He gives the bat to a fan in the front row. That's nice. But watch this swing. How quick he draws his hands through the strike zone. He doesn't have very long arms, and they're very muscular, so he really doesn't have much choice but to have a short, compact swing.
A la Bob Horner.
Good comparison.
Thanks.
And watch how close he holds his hands to his body like Bob used to do.
Tapped foul again. A ball and 2 strikes.
Sometimes your memory amazes me.
It really does. Sometimes it amazes me, too. I remember. You've got such a good memory. I remember when I liked you. 1-2 the count. Up and in. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Breaking ball might be a good idea here. Just to keep him off balance as much as possible.
He threw him a breaking ball, but he missed with it. That's 3-2. Be careful here. This guy can hurt you.
Yeah, but the start of an inning, you already got a runner on first. You got a 4-run lead. You got to make Vaughn put it in play here. Don't walk him.
Double play would be rather nice.
It would be, but throw a strike. If he hits it, he hits it.
He lost him downstairs. 2 on, nobody out, and trouble brews in the 4th as Jeffrey Hammonds strides to the plate. Second walk of the day for Perez.
Sometimes you have to trust your best stuff. And Dallas Perez is 20 years old. I didn't see him shake off Hobby. Maybe he did. I'm not sure what he uses to shake off a sign, but some of this has got to fall on Hobby's shoulders too, to recognize the situation, what is working best for O'Dallas, which in the past has either been his fastball or his changeup. But rather than risk missing with the changeup, 4-0 lead, make Greg Vaughn hit the ball.
Hammond's a strikeout victim his first time. Tough man to double. He runs rather well. 2 on and nobody out, and the Reds bid to get right back into the ball game. I guess he called that a ball. He sort of jerked his arm, but 1-0 the count. There's a fly ball to left. The wind will hold it up. Gerald Williams comes in fact. 1 out. Got that one a little bit off the end of the bat. Aaron Boone, who chased Andrew Jones to the center field wall for his long drive, his first time, is now the batter.
You mentioned that Aaron's a little bigger than his brother Brett. That's exactly right. 6'2", 200-pounder. Their brother Matt, the third of the 3 Boone brothers, is playing in the Detroit organization.
Strike on the corner, 0-1. Brian Johnson waits on deck. Double play ball right through Chipper's legs. Runner around third. He's going to try. Here's the throw. It's cut off. Instead of a double play, a run scores, and it's 4-1, and the tying run comes to the plate. It'll be a boot. Second of the day for Chipper.
Moving to his left, and in an effort to hurry to try to get the double play, came up too soon on the ball. It was sharply hit, but stayed down and got under his glove.
Brian Johnson is the batter. He has 2 homers this year. But he's hitting about 158. He reached on an error his first time. That's the Reds' first run in 21 and a third innings in this series. Low, 1 ball, no strikes. Second run in the series, I'm sorry. Right in there. It's 1-1. First and second, 1 out, a run in.
93-mile-an-hour fastball. There just aren't that many hard-throwing lefties around that you can compare him to. It makes him, kind of separates him from the crowd.
2 balls and a strike. The wind is blowing in. You got to lead. You're right, Joe. You got to throw strikes. Dennis Reyes begins to throw in the bullpen for the Reds. Up the middle, there's a solid hit, and another run is in, and it's 4-2. So things beginning to unravel here a little. You almost had a feeling this was going to happen when the Braves had that great chance to break it wide open and could not do it.
Yeah, the 2 pop-ups hurt last inning. They didn't plate any runs when Atlanta had the table set to really close the door on the Reds, but now it's back to a 2-run game.
Leo Mazzone to the mound. That normally means the bullpen will get busy, but I see no action yet. 4-2 our score in the 4th.
Bottom part of the order, guys who have been struggling. He got 1 out in Hammonds, but both Boone and Johnson have hit the ball hard, and to be fair, the ball hit to Chipper could easily have been a double play if he had gloved it.
So now Pokey Reese is the batter. He fouled to the catcher his first time. The pitcher's spot is due next in the order. Nobody's on deck yet. Perez steps back off the mound.
That's Sullivan that has come out and would hit for himself apparently, and that's probably not a bad move given the way he's been pitching. If he's a guy that's been kind of a stopper for you in the middle innings to hold teams, no reason not to stay with him.
Dallas falls behind again. 1 ball, no strikes.
The Reds haven't even had many RBI opportunities in this series. Not only have they not had many hits, there haven't been many base runners, period.
Outside corner, 1-1.
Smoltz walked 1. Millwood in the bullpen walked 4 last night. One of those walks scored.
Now the bullpen gets busy for Atlanta. Pop foul back and out of play. He's ahead of it. 1-2 the count. Pittsburgh has reclaimed the lead from Colorado at 3-2 there in the 3rd inning. A ball and 2 strikes. High pop foul back. seats.
Dodgers playing good baseball now that they've gotten on the road. They've won 5 in a row.
Justin Spire begins to throw in the Atlanta bullpen. Braves 3 in the first, 1 in the third. Reds 2 here in the fourth, and they're still batting.
Key pitch here to Pokey Reese. This is a guy, at least in this count, where you can afford to throw a ball.
Another one popped up. Avi coming over. He will run out of room.
Almost hit that one in the Cowboy Hat Corral over there. One of those guys turned around and said, "Heads up, Zeb."
1-2. Yeah. "24 pitches. That's a bunch. In 1 inning of work. Two and two.
Remember, you got to go 5 innings to be the pitcher of record if you want to get a win. This is only the 4th.
Tom Glavine and Jose Jimenez here tomorrow. There's a big strikeout for him. Number 4 on the day. And now the pitcher will be called back.
Here's a good fastball. Outside part of the plate. Too close to take for Reese, and he couldn't connect.
Mark Lewis will come out here and pinch hit. So even with 2 outs, Jack McKeon is rolling the dice that this is his inning.
Yeah, and you can't blame him for that given the way everything else has gone in this series.
So Lewis stands in hitting at .314. He's 11 out of 35 with 2 RBI.
This guy's a former first-round draft pick of the Cleveland Indians, but he's been on a different team for each of the last 6 seasons, all in the big leagues. That's hard to figure. Second tour of duty with the Reds.
1 ball, no strikes. Top of the order, Mike Cameron would be next. 4-2 Atlanta, our score. There's his resume. One and one the count.
First 2 games of the series, he started at third base. Looked like he was trying to pull everything. First move was off the plate.
That should end the inning. Chipper has this one. And the inning is over. A good job of damage control by Perez. 2 runs, 2 hits, 1 costly error, 1 of the runs unearned, and a couple of runners left. We go to the bottom half of the 4th inning with your score. Braves 4, Reds 2.
The 4th inning, and a reminder that tomorrow night on the Superstation, the New York Knicks try and hold on to the final Eastern playoff spot. They host the Boston Celtics at Madison Square Garden. That's tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern on TBS.
Odalis Perez will lead things off here against Dennis Reyes, the new pitcher for Jack McKeon's Reds. Reyes has done very well, a 1.74 earned run average in 10 games.
Had a rough spring, had a 7.45 ERA in 19 innings. He gave up 16 runs and walked 9. He came over in the deal from Los Angeles with Paul Konerko for Jeff Shaw, and the Dodgers were very high on this young man.
3-1 last year with Cincinnati, a rather high earned run average, 4.42. He's got a pitcher hitting, 1 pitch, 1 out. Perez is retired, jumped on the first pitch both times. Here's Gerald Williams. Cincinnati has a 10-man pitching staff at the moment. Brett Tomko was optioned, and they haven't replaced him. They're one of the few teams in baseball anymore that has only 5 relievers.
You have to carry 24.
Yeah.
Checked with John Sherholtz and Stan Kasten the other night about that. You do have to have at least 24 men on your roster, but there's no rule that says you have to have 25.
Outside to Williams, 1 ball, no strikes. Two and 0.
Reyes 6'3", 246.
There's a drive into deep left. He may have gotten enough of this. He did. There's one of those runs back. It's 5-2 Atlanta. Gerald Williams hits number 2 on the year. He's 2 out of 3 on the day.
If anybody liked the fact that they pinch hit for Sullivan and brought in a lefty, it would have to be Gerald Williams, who just scalds left-handed pitching. He knew it was gone. I was watching Gerald down the line. He was enjoying that one.
Here's Brett Boone, who's 2 for 2 and has scored 2 runs. Top of the order is doing it today. They are top 3 men are 6 out of 7 in this game.
Thanks, Lou.
The count. 1-2 is the count. Chipper Jones is next.
Reyes had racked up some pretty good and pretty impressive minor league numbers with the Dodgers.
Got him. Boone called out on strikes. Second out of the inning.
Strikeouts were something he was known for. Curve. I don't know if it actually came back and got the outside corner, but it was close enough for Greg Bonet. 1996 at San Bernardino, Reyes struck out 176 batters in 166 innings.
Chipper bats with 2 out, takes high, 1 ball, no strikes. 5-2 Atlanta. That's our score. Reds will not hit him 8-2. Low and inside, 2-0. Brian Jordan would be next. They're 2 out in the inning. The 2-0 pitch. Swung, lined into center field. Cameron on the run, still going. Makes a fine catch, and the inning is over. Highway robbery there. An outstanding play by Mike Cameron. 1 hit, 1 run. The Williams homer, no errors, nobody left. At the end of 4, 5-2 Braves.
Braves baseball on the Superstation, brought to you by Olympic. Protect your deck with Olympic Maximum, guaranteed to let you skip a year of deck care. And by Office Depot. Low prices every day.
Turner Beach is still on its way. They'll soon have the sand and the lifeguards out there and the cocktails. And as is so often the case, the guy who made the outstanding play to end the bottom half of the inning leads off the top of yet another 5th, and that would be Mike Cameron. 5-2 Atlanta, our score. Perez hurls it plateward, and a strike is called. It's 0-1.
And it's pretty much a given. The next pitch will be a strike no matter what happens, because Cameron is struggling.
You think?
Yeah, it's 0-2 every time up. 5 strikeouts and 9 at bats now in this series.
Wrong again, and it's 1-1.
Jinx Perez on that one.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
That ball Chipper hit to center, didn't slice a bit. Boy, it held its line. I can't believe the wind didn't push it a little way. It was away from Cameron, but he made a terrific catch.
There's a strike. It's 1-2. As pictured here.
Stayed with it and right out in the web of his glove and kept his feet too. Nice play.
A ball and 2 strikes. It's even now, 2-2. Cameron out of nearby LaGrange, Georgia. Just did stay alive there. Still 2-2. Yankees lead Kansas City 2-0 in the second inning.
With the Braves having already won this series, they are now 6-0-2 in the series so far in 1999. He split 2 of them. That's not as good a start as they had a couple of years ago.
Cameron says goodbye again, and he's got an early hat trick in this game.
5th strikeout for Perez. This looked like a changeup going down and away and well off the plate, but he got Cameron to fish for it anyway. Back in 1993, the Braves' first 14 series of the year, they went 14-0.
That's not too bad.
That was pretty good. That was a good start.
Want to know the count to Barry Larkin, who has tapped to the catcher and flied to center. Cleveland has the best record in baseball. They are 17-6. Braves at 16-7 are second best in all of baseball.
Jim Bowden's made it clear that he'd trade anybody on this club if he thought he could improve it. Anybody. So when that time comes when we were talking about Greg Vaughn, if this team is out of the hunt in July and teams are looking to improve their teams before the trading deadline, wouldn't surprise me to see Larkin going somewhere else either.
The 1-1 pitch to it. Over the outside corner, it's 1-2. If Barry's average stays where it is now, there might not be any takers, but he's a much better hitter than this. Al Morris waits on deck. Line foul into the seats down the right side. Hopefully everybody's okay. They appear to be. A ball and 2 strikes, the count. 1 out here in the top of the 5th. Pete and Don will join you after this half inning. See ya. Larkin caught looking. That's 2 outs.
6 strikeouts for Odalis Perez, 3 of the last 4. And this is a big hook. And give Greg Bonet credit for being consistent. This is a similar pitch that he called on Brian Hunter earlier today for a strikeout.
Hal Morris, the batter, he's walked and singled and scored one of the Reds' runs.
Reds are about to head home for a long homestand. You say, well, that'll be good. They regroup. They're 4-8 at Synergy Field right now.
Right through there. All of a sudden, the Reds seems to have things under control again. Misses with a breaking ball, but not by much. 1-2. Dodgers have tied the Phillies 2-2. They're in the 4th. Inside outed it foul down the left field line. Nice catch by Fan, who brought his glove and makes his daughter a very happy young lady.
Great sight. Seen these new helmets for girls that play softball and baseball? They've got a hole cut in the back of them for their ponytail, like a little notch, so it'll fit over their ponytail if they wear a ponytail while they play.
That's a good idea. 2-2 the count. Hot shot. Weiss a good play. Can he throw him out? No. Good effort. It'll be a hit. And here's danger again. Greg Vaughn, and he always bats with a runner on.
Terrific play here by Walt. The ball came away from him. It kind of got loose from him there when he was taking it out of his glove. Good scoop by Hunter to make it close, but maybe without that bobble there, they get him.
Yeah. It is a hit, of course, as it should be. Vaughn has walked and scored. He has also bounced into the force play. A long one brings him to within one. Jeffrey Hammond is next. And this is one guy that scares you in this lineup as far as home runs are concerned. Upstairs, 1 ball, no strikes. He hit 50 of them last year.
Yeah, Braves got one of those runs back with the home run by Williams last inning to give them 5 runs on the day, and when they score 5 runs in a ball game, they're 12-0. This was far from over.
That's not good news. 2-0 the count. Cubs are running the first. They're still batting. They shoot for their 5th in a row against the Padres.
He would be the pitcher of record with 1 more out, but he's really racking up a lot of pitches.
Yeah, this is number 93. And it's fouled away. 2-1. It's not just the walks. It's all the 3-1s and 3-2s and 2-0s.
Well, as a hitter, the more pitches you see, the better you feel, the more comfortable you feel, even against a guy that's got good stuff like Perez. You get into some deep counts and you've seen 5 or 6 pitches, you like your chances.
2-2 the count. Kevin McGlinchey now in the bullpen. The pride of Malden, Massachusetts.
Staying with a fastball here, maybe.
Yep, and it's popped up. Who wants it? Brian Hunter has it, and the inning is over. That one was hit a mile high, but Perez gets out of it. 1 hit, no runs, no errors, 1 left. We go to the bottom half of the 5th inning. Braves lead it 5-2.
We go to the bottom half of the 5th inning. Pete Van Weer and Don Sutton joining you now as the Braves go for the sweep in this 3-game series. Getting good pitching again today, Don, from the youngster Odalis Perez.
Well, he pitched a great ball game last time out. Pete may have stayed just a little bit too long, but I think he gets more confident with all 3 of his pitches every time out. Nice to see the Braves give him some runs to play with. But I'll bet you one thing today, they're going to do whatever it takes with this lead to see him get that first big league win.
He's thrown 94 pitches through the first 5 innings. Brian Jordan 0 for 2. And down on the count 0-2 against Dennis Reyes. Jordan has popped out to second, flied out to left. And did not have a good swing at that one. Second strikeout for Reyes, out number 1 here in the bottom of the 5th.
Good breaking ball from Reyes in a good spot with 2 strikes down and in.
Now Javi Lopez, who has been the hero today offensively for Atlanta, a pair of run-scoring doubles. Driving in his 13th and 14th runs of the year.
And that second double drove the nail into the coffin for Denny Nagel. Remember, we were talking last night about how the pitching philosophy has changed. Javi Lopez getting more fastballs thrown to him and not many breaking balls, but he's had 2 changeups to handle today and got them both.
1 ball, 1 strike. Lopez back up to 295 for the year now, after falling into a little bit of a slump. Two and 1 the count on Javi Lopez. 5 runs, 8 hits for Atlanta. 2 runs, 3 hits for the Reds. Reds have managed only 7 hits in this series. 2-2 too.
Every now and then when we get to this stage of game 3, you'll say, well, he's 0 for 9 in the series. About 6 guys you can say that about wearing offers in this Reds lineup.
Over Reyes, fielded by Larkin, and he throws out Lopez. 2 men gone. And that'll bring up Andrew Jones, and a sac fly to left in the first inning and popped out to second in the third. What do you suppose that was all about?
I don't know. I know it's kids' cartoon day out here, but I don't know which character that was.
First pitch to Andrew. Foul back on 1.
I thought he was talking about Reyes. When you look at Reyes, see how high his shoulders are, and his arms kind of short, so he looks like a guy whose shoulders are pumped up. Remember George Theodore?
Oh, yeah. I knew the story.
Yeah. They used to accuse him of leaving the coat hangers in his shirts and jackets when he put them on.
He was on one of the AAA clubs that I worked for back in the early 70s at Tidewater. Very interesting guy to be around. Used to take batting practice sometimes with a donut on the bat. Just to be different. Here's the 1-2. Got him swinging. Reyes, strong inning for Reyes. Looked good. 3 strikeouts for Reyes. 1, 2, 3 go the Braves in the 5th. It's still 5-2.
We're heading to the 6th inning. That seems like it'd be a good time for our Budweiser game summary. Perez with 6 strikeouts through 121 pitches his last time out. He's approaching 100 now. Bobby Lopez 2 for 3 with a couple of RBIs. Johnson had an RBI single. Gerald Williams another good day. And the Braves, if they can win this one, will be 2-1 in reunion games against former pitchers, losing to Jason Schmidt, beating Steve Avery, and they lead Denny Nagel. That's your Budweiser game summary. It's 5-2.
And one more former teammate on this homestand, Ken Merker, on Tuesday night when the Cardinals are in. Eagle pitch for St. Louis against Greg Maddux. Jeffrey Hammond's leading off here in the 6th. Against Odalis Perez. Hammond's is struck out and fly to left. He'll be followed by Boone, then Johnson.
The bullpen hasn't taken a seat, so apparently, probably Odalis Perez is very close to whatever pitch limit they're going to set on him today.
Yeah, I agree with what you said last inning. They're not going to let him be in a position where he could lose this one. Not after the way he's pitched again here today. Fouled back 1-2.
He's holding his stuff really well. The velocity on his fastball staying the same. I think the one pitch in watching Odalis Perez this year that he's gotten more and more confident with every outing is his changeup. He's thrown some nasty ones today.
Here's the 1-2. It's on the outside corner. Strike 3 call. That's a half a dozen strikeouts. And out number 1 here in the top half of the 6th.
Good control, too. Fastball, when he's wanted to locate it out there, he has done it. And we were talking last night about Braves' pitching philosophy is basically to pitch away and then to come inside for a purpose.
Now Aaron Boone, first pitch swinging, little pop fly into shallow left field. Williams battles the sun out there, makes the catch, and quickly 2 are down here in the top half of the 6th. Batter will be the catcher Brian Johnson. Johnson 1 for 2, an RBI single his last time up. 6 strikeouts for Odalis Perez, a single game high for him in the major leagues. 7 strikeouts, I'm sorry.
He's going to exceed that a lot of times. In watching him pitch, I think when we first saw him, it was fastball, breaking ball, and changeup. But I really believe his changeup has moved into second spot in importance in his pitching selection.
Well, he's filled out from when the Braves signed him. They still list him on the roster at being 6 feet and 150 pounds. He's a lot stronger than 150 pounds right now. He has filled out and gotten stronger as he's grown up. He was only 16 when he signed with the Braves.
You like his demeanor, don't you?
I really do. He's a very, very determined competitor. He is determined to be successful at this level. Here's the 1-2. 2-2.
And I love his delivery. He uses every ounce of whatever that weight is and follows through, takes the strain off his elbow.
Off the handle, that's going to fall into right field for a base hit. And Johnson's 2 out of 3. That was a good pitch. A good job of hitting there by Brian Johnson.
You don't always get outs with great pitches, and you don't always give up hits on bad pitches. Right in on the fist probably cost him a bat and some jarred fingernails, but he'll stand at first with the base hit.
Kevin McGlinchey is ready if needed out in the Atlanta bullpen. Johnson, the runner at first. Pokey Reese, the hitter. He's fouled out to the catcher and struck out.
The pitcher's spot is third up when the Braves come to bat in the bottom of the 6th, and you know they'd like to not have to use 3 players in that one spot. So probably what they really thinking they'd like to see is Odalis Perez get one more out, and if they're going to make a move, do it with a pinch hitter.
Up to 105 pitches on the afternoon now. 2 outs, Johnson at first. 1-1.
Here's that changeup.
You saw how far out in front Pokey Reese was. The count 1-2.
Good motion, good speed, good location, and he had movement. He was 4 for 4 on the things you like to see happen with a changeup.
That's well hit to left center field. That's going to be in the gap between Williams and Jones and go all the way to the wall. Brian Johnson will get the green light around third. Pokey Reese will stop at second. RBI double to make it 5-3. 9th RBI of the year for Reese.
We were showing you Odalis Perez close up just prior to that pitch, and he shook off 2 pitches to throw the fastball. I guarantee you Javi Lopez was thinking he took an ugly swing at the changeup. Let's do it again. So when he comes back and tries to overpower him, gets it right down the middle. Reese, good fastball hitter, right on it. So that's one time the youngster who is very sure of himself may have outthought himself and disagreed with his catcher.
Mark Sweeney being introduced as the pinch hitter. And as he is, Bobby Cox making his way to the mound.
Yeah, he's not going to take any chances.
So Dallas Perez leaves the game leading at 5-3 with a runner at second base and 2 men out here in the 6th inning. A career high 7 strikeouts today for Odalis Perez. And good control. He walked only 2. Gets a nice hand from the crowd. We'll be right back. Well, it's up to the Braves bullpen now to see if Odalis Perez will post that first major league win. He is leading at 5-3 as he exits the game, and Kevin McGlinchey takes over. McGlinchey making appearance number 12, a 1-0 record, a 0.96 earned run average. Braves bullpen is well rested. The performances that we have had from John Smoltz and Tom Glavine, root-going performances from them. Greg Maddux went 8 innings in his last start. And then Kevin Millwood last night, pitching into the 8th inning. So McGlinchey hasn't pitched since Monday. And keep an eye on this first hitter. One of the things that Bobby Cox and Leo Mazzoni have been a little concerned about, and just a little, not much, but just a little, is the last 2 or 3 times McGlinchey's come into a game, he's walked the first hitter, and that's unlike him.
Yeah, first hitters 1 for 6 with 5 walks, so 6 out of 11 have reached on him.
Well, here's Mark Sweeney, who is an outstanding pinch hitter. He's 4-9 this year on the season, and as a pinch hitter, and both of his home runs have been pinch hit home runs.
He got caught in some duplication at St. Louis, didn't he? Sweeney and Mabry quite similar, and went on to San Diego. But he always had a good stroke, much like Hal Morris, much like Mark Grace.
Fouls away McGlinchey's first pitch, 0-1.
That's impressive. I guess that's one of those good news, bad news.
I was going to say there's a message there that
he may not want.
It's great for your reputation, but maybe not so good for your playing time, huh? The 0-1. Nothing in 2. You get a reputation of being a good pinch hitter. That's what you're going to do.
Yeah, it's like a guy who could play all the infield positions. Great utility man.
Left-hander Mike Remlinger up in the Braves bullpen.
That's caused a little bit of a controversy out in Los Angeles with Jose Vizcaíno and Mark Rizalanic. Well, they wanted to keep both, but Vizcaíno could play more positions, so he could help you out a lot of places.
1-2 now on Mark Sweeney. 2 men out. Pokey Reese down at second. Play still 1-2.
JR's got a target painted on him, doesn't he? He's been whacked a few times operating that camera. Got to get him a hard hat.
His moves are a little better this year, though.
After getting nailed a few times, your moves will get better. Don't leave that equipment unprotected, though.
A ball, 2 strikes, and Sweeney. Strike him out. McGlinchey does the job, striking out Mark Sweeney. And getting out of the inning with Pokey Reese still the runner at second base. So the Reds settle for the 1 run. We go to the bottom of the 6th. The Braves up by 2.
It's 5-3 as the Braves come to bat, bottom of the 6th inning. Javi Lopez is having a day. Pair of doubles, 2 RBIs. He's red hot, but he's not the only player around baseball who's having himself a good week or a good couple of weeks. Fernando Tatis, Reggie Sanders, 3 home runs in his last 4 ball games. David Cone, no surprise there. The earned run average is spectacular. Larry Walker also with 6 homers, 16 RBIs in a week. So a lot of people around the big leagues red hot. If you want to find out who else is red hot, up to the date, follow along with Baseball Livecast only on CNNSI.com. What's Tatis up to RBI?
29 now for the year for Fernando Tatis, and it's only May 2nd. Brian Hunter is the leadoff hitter in the bottom half of the 6th inning against the new Cincinnati pitcher, right-hander Danny Graves. Graves, the 4th man to work today, his 14th appearance. He has a win, 3 losses, 3 saves, and a .491 earned run average. Hunter has struck out and walked today. Reyes worked 2 innings. The only damage done, the home run by Gerald Williams. Reyes struck out 3. 1-1 now on Graves, who the Reds have hopes will develop into a big-time closer for him. He did a good job as a closer in the bullpen in the minor leagues. And he has 3 of their 4 saves this year. Saved 8 games last year. But they feel that he will eventually develop into a top-of-the-line closer.
Velocity somewhere around 90, but he has a good curveball. and good location.
Hunter caught looking. That's the 7th strikeout for Cincinnati pitchers today.
Watch how he just slings it up there, almost sidearm. Looks like he could really get the ball on you. Ball comes back over the plate. Good late movement. You get that much movement, Pete, you don't have to throw the ball 95 miles an hour.
Now Walt Weiss is 0 for 2, a strikeout and a pop out to third. Reese on to first for out number 2. So Graves gets the first 2 outs quickly. And now looks like Kevin McGlinchey's going to bat for himself here. And this will be his first major league at bat. So all you folks up there in Malden, Mass, get your videotapes rolling.
And getting to know him just a little bit, I'd be very surprised if he takes a pitch, wouldn't you?
Yes. See? Made contact. Pitcher to first for a 1-2-3 inning. So Graves gets the Braves in order. 8 in a row have been retired now by the Reds bullpen. We're heading to the 7th, still 5-3 Atlanta.
Braves baseball on the Superstation, brought to you by Everstart Battery. All the cold cranking power your truck, car, boat, or more will ever need. Available at Walmart. And by First Union.
Going to the 7th inning, 5-3 Atlanta on top. Kevin McGlinchey's still out there. He's got the top of the order to deal with here. Mike Cameron, Barry Larkin, Hal Morris. Mike Remlinger up in the bullpen for Atlanta. On a beautiful Sunday afternoon. Couldn't ask for a more perfect day after a chilly week.
And a ton of kids out today. Nice to see them enjoying the ball game. I think it's the biggest collection of kids we've had this year.
Cameron is now 0 for 10 in the series. He struck out 3 times today. Nothing in 1 to count. Made a couple of nice defensive plays.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys that you see some players, if they're struggling offensively, then their defense goes south too. But he's one of those guys that's able to separate it.
Showing bunt, 1 ball, 1 strike. Fastball, 1-2. 94 on the radar gun on that pitch. Here's the 1-2. Pop foul out of play right side. Braves keep having these stories every year. Last year with John Walker. After languishing in the minor leagues for a few years, moving to the bullpen and rapidly working his way into an important role in this team. Now McGlinchey making the jump from basically Class A ball last year.
Kerry Lightenberg last year.
The Kerry Lightenberg story. And there might be another one developing. Former #1 draft pick Jason Marquis pitching at Myrtle Beach this year in his first 4 starts, 20 scoreless innings.
I make it a point to ask scouts when they come in, different teams come in. I ask them about McGlinchey, and the consensus has been, and they almost all use the same phrase, it's just a matter of time. And I say, just a matter of time till what? They say till he's one of the best closers in baseball, because they are unanimous on their assessment of his potential.
2 balls, 2 strikes.
He's a good kid, too. He's fun to be around.
Middle of the infield, Weiss.
Tough sun.
Stays with it. Notice how he angled himself away from looking directly up into that sun. 1 away. And that'll bring up Barry Larkin. Larkin 0 for 3 today and 0 for 9 in the series. So these top two hitters in the Reds order today, a combined 0 for 20 right now against Braves pitching this weekend.
I didn't remember this about Barry Larkin, but apparently it's not news to see him get off to a start like this.
Same start he had last year. He hit 188 last year, the first month of the season. He's hitting 186 this year.
Pitches like that average falls more too.
0-2 on Larkin. 5 runs, 8 hits, 2 errors for the Braves. 3, 5, and 1 for the Reds. Braves going for a 5th straight win before the Cardinals come to town. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Cincinnati now up along with Revlinger. Got a left-handed bat due up next, but that was a left-handed hitter that McGlinchey struck out to end the 6th inning. Brett Boone, his old double play partner, he throws out. Well, they were something to watch in Cincinnati together.
I've talked to Brett about that. He said and he's had good relationships with other shortstops, but he said it was eerie with Larkin. It was almost like they were completing each other's thoughts, and they could anticipate, and they knew where each other was going to be. That's that's like a pitcher-catcher relationship that you get that can be very special.
Now Hal Morris, who has walked and singled twice.
Watch these happy feet when he hits. Out of the Arthur Murray School of Hitting. Left foot, right foot, left foot.
You don't teach that.
No.
And no one teaches
Not
it
deliberate.
to you. It's just something that comes naturally to you.
What's that back foot?
0-2.
You know, it's fun seeing somebody with an unusual style, because you see, watch from overhead. The back foot will go forward. He just moves all over. Because you'll see some kids maybe doing it in an unusual way, and it always bothers me to hear somebody say, well, you can't do it that way. There is no one way to do anything right. As far as hitting or throwing is concerned, there are ways that are comfortable, and if you can do it successfully standing on your head, do it.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Another strikeout of a left-hand hitter for Kevin McGlinchey. And he's tough to strike out.
Well, I live out here on a little old farm. I got
Chipper, by going 2 for 3 on the afternoon, has that average back up to 300. Strike.
I bet you Bobby Cox is sitting in the dugout thinking it'd be nice to get a few more runs, because they've handled the Reds easily the first 2 ball game. And at the big league level, that 3rd day seems to be the hardest win to get when you beat up on somebody 2 straight days. The law of averages is going to catch up to you. A little cushion would help.
Totally. Yeah, the final game of a series, when you've won the first 2 or 3 games in that series, is either going to be the toughest game to win or the easiest. If you score 4 or 5 in the first inning, you can sometimes just go out and put them to bed early. But you're right, a team will wake up eventually, and you hope it's going to be the day after they leave. Here's the 2-1. Sharply hit. Larkin in the middle. Double play. So Chipper Jones hitting into the 4-6-3 double play, and another scoreless inning for the Reds bullpen. Still 5 for 3 Atlanta.
take a look at the Delta scoreboard. Fernando Tatis continues his powerful hitting. Philadelphia's just gone 1-up on L.A. Kurt Schilling on the mound there. Pittsburgh's Jason Schmidt has a 4-run lead. San Francisco and the Mets have themselves a pitching duel going. Arizona got one from Matt Williams, a solo homer. San Diego trails the Cubs. That's Ashby against Sanders. Over in the American League, Baltimore, DeShields and Bell have homered. Detroit easily has hit his 5th homer. Yankees trail Kansas City. That's Apier against Irabu. And that's all the scores on our Delta scoreboard. Log on to CNN SI for the latest scores and news from around the diamond. Remember that, CNNSI.com. It's the ultimate address for sports.
A successful day out of the bullpen for that young man, Kevin McGlinchey, an inning in the third, a pair of strikeouts of 2 tough left-handed hitters, Mark Sweeney and Hal Morris. And now Rudy Cianez takes over for Atlanta. Cianez making his 12th appearance. Look at those numbers. 0.82 earned run average. League hitting just 154 against him. And Greg Vaughn will start things here in the 8th. He is hit into a force, walked, and popped out.
Braves just want to keep Rudy Cianez healthy. I think he showed last year what he's capable of doing. He's continuing that this year.
On the ground to third. 1 pitch and 1 out.
But he's one of those guys that if you use him today and tomorrow, he needs Tuesday off. And if you use him, say, for 5-6 hitters today, you probably will be a little short tomorrow.
Yeah, managers and pitching coaches call that the rebound factor. How well does a guy bounce back the next day, or can he bounce back the next day? That sometimes will determine what role in the bullpen a pitcher may have, or if he can even pitch out of the bullpen. Jeffrey Hammond's 0 for 3, a couple of strikeouts. And Cianez had McCann, no balls, 1 strike.
You were mentioning Jason Marquis earlier. What's his scouting report on him? Do you know what his stuff's like?
Throws hard. And he had a disappointing year last year record-wise, but that was a very deceptive record. He was still voted one of the top 10 prospects in the Carolina League. And they sent him back there this year just to get the confidence built up. I think he was 1 in 10 last year. And he's got 20 consecutive scoreless innings to start the year. He won't be there long. And I'm not saying that the same thing is going to be done with him that was done with Rocker and McGlinchey. I don't know as though they have any plans to move him to the bullpen, but you always look for who's next in line among the young pitchers, and he may be the next one.
Well, right now you have 5 starters and a couple of other guys fine-tuning their starting skills.
And you bring it up sometimes because every place you go, these scouts that you see and you run into keep saying, where do you find all these guys? Where do you find all these pitchers? Because pitching seems to be the thing that's the most difficult to find right now for every club. And other clubs are very, very impressed with the array of young pitching talent that the Braves run out there.
Goes back to one of our favorite subjects, the scouts. Great scouting system here and great minor league development system.
Strikeout of Hammonds is out number 2. Cianez recording his first strikeout.
I believe that's 10 for Braves pitching.
And that'll bring up Aaron Boone, who's 0 for 3. A fly to center. He has reached on an error and fly to left. Rudy keeps pitching like this. He may want to join up with Sports Illustrated to form CNNSI.com. There's a line drive out to center field. It's going to fall in for a base hit.
That's a number we don't show very much. It's in the stats, but I think that is that's a good number we ought to involve a little bit more. What opponents are hitting against you, because that is really a very effective measure of how dominating you've been. Greg Maddux this year has piled up quite a few wins, but he hasn't been as effective as we've seen him in the past. He's had a lot of runs to play with, and the league hitting about 300 against Maddux.
305 against Greg now.
So it won't necessarily tell you how many wins he has or how many runs a guy's allowed, but I think it will tell you how effective he's been against hitters.
I'll give you a number that'll show you how effective a guy has been against hitters so far right after this 1-0 pitch. Over the first. John Smoltz, after his first 5 starts, hitters are hitting 177 against him.
Yeah, he has dominated. I like to combine hits and walks too. How many runners per 9 innings?
Little pop-up by Brian Johnson, shallow right center. Boone calling for it. Jordan's going to call him off, and Jordan makes the catch and gives Brett Boone a pat on the back for getting out of the way just in time. Scoreless inning for Rudy Cianez. We go to the bottom of the 8th. Bottom half of the 8th inning, Braves up 5-3, trying to get a little insurance here against Danny Graves, who has worked a couple of scoreless innings. It'll be Jordan, Lopez, and Jones due up. And Brian Jordan will start things 0 for 3. He's popped to second, fly to left, struck out.
And made a good defensive play in the top half of the 8th inning.
Yeah, that play scared you, didn't it?
Yeah, because you could just see him.
That's a foul ball.
Boone was calling for it, and you could just see Jordan coming in a hurry.
And the ball wasn't hit that high in the air. There was not a whole lot of time to react.
So he's calling, I got it. But right there, he hears Jordan's voice. And I think the way most infielders work and most outfielders, you keep going till you hear somebody yell. And it doesn't necessarily mean I have it. You don't have to say that. Just when you hear an outfielder's voice, you just get the heck out of the way. That would have been a big collision there.
The 0-1. 0-2 now on Brian Jordan. Broken bat. Bat went further than the ball did.
That bat took a shot at 3 people, too. That's pretty good play by the pitcher. That's not as routine as it looked, because you got a couple of things on your mind. That's the big part of the bat comes tumbling out that way, and that's sharp. He ducked that. Look out, Aaron Boone. It's a nice play by the pitcher.
1 out for Javi Lopez, who has swung a hot bat today. A couple of doubles, 2 RBIs. Crowd of 42,036 on hand for the finale of this series. Beautiful afternoon. Just looking at the schedule, the Braves don't go to Cincinnati until the end of August for the first time and only time this year. Reds will be in Atlanta again in mid-August.
Yeah, it's one of those weird schedules. I think we take 3 trips.
Now, the Central Division, we're only playing once this year on the road. Yeah.
We take 3 trips to Istanbul, but only 1 to Cincinnati.
A ball and 2 strikes on Lopez. Still 1-2.
Well, some of the old favorite eating establishments are gone anyway in Cincinnati.
But some aren't. One out, or in the bottom of the 8th. Braves did most of the damage early. A 3-run first inning. Lopez drove in one of those with a double.
Speaking of strange scheduling, how about Pittsburgh will be back here in 10 days, right?
Yeah, they're back here again.
They just left.
Yep. They're back here again May 17th, 18th, and 19th. And the Braves don't go to Pittsburgh until
July, maybe?
August. First week in August. 2-2 on Lopez. throws out Javi Lopez. 2 gone. Andrew Jones will hit. John Walker in the Atlanta pen.
You can see the kind of pitcher Graves is. He's not a fly ball pitcher. All of the outs to this point recorded either on ground outs or Gerald Williams getting thrown out at second. Error by Larkin on a grounder. Grounder to second for a double play. Back to the mound and then 1 to third.
Graves, one of those guys that's been groomed to be a relief pitcher even since college. He was an outstanding relief pitcher at the University of Miami. Led the nation one year with 21 saves. Once in a while you'll come across then. Greg Olson came out of a program in college as a relief pitcher and went on to become a good one at the major league level. That's somewhat unusual. 1 ball, 1 strike.
How do you know that? That's always amazed me.
Most successful closers at the major league level were starting pitchers in the minor leagues, not relievers. And if you talk to managers and pitching coaches, they'll tell you, well, when you're in the minor leagues, the best arms are going to be the starters, the guys that have the best stuff, and they're going to get the most innings of work. And then when guys get to be AA, AAA, you start thinking about their futures, what might be the way they can be used best at the major league level, and that's when you start converting them. Some don't even convert till they get to the major leagues, a la Kevin McGlinchey.
I'll bet you one of the ingredients is how effective is he as a 2-pitch pitcher versus being a 3 or 4-pitch pitcher.
On the outside corner, Andrew Jones caught looking. And that's the way Andrew complains to an umpire. He just smiles at him. 1, 2, 3 for the Braves in the 8th inning.
It's 5-3 as we head to the 9th inning. Braves pitching has been exceptional in this series, and you won't get the argument out of the Cincinnati Reds. The batting, look at the batting average, only 10 hits, and were it not for some good swings of the bat by their catchers, that would be even lower. That's about as effectively as you could pitch against a ball club in a 3-game series.
And the Braves need 3 more outs to sweep the series. John Rocker will try to get them. He is making his 10th appearance of the year. 1-1 with 1 save. Braves only have 3 saves out of their bullpen this year. 1 by Rocker, 1 by Cianez. And do you remember who got the other one? Darren Ebert, who is now back at Richmond as the starting pitcher. So Rocker tries to become the first member of the Braves pen with 2 saves this year. He starts out Pokey Reese with a strike. Reese an RBI double his last time up.
Ebert, that was a 3-inning performance.
Yeah. He, by the way, is off to a good start at Richmond. His first 2 starts, no wins or losses yet, but his ERA is about 2.40. And it's quickly 0-2 on Pokey Reese.
Joe Winklesass is throwing well, too, after being set down.
Down at Greenville. Here's the 0-2. Still nothing in 2. Sean Casey has moved on deck. He'll pinch hit for Danny Graves. One ball, 2 strikes. This is game number 24 for Atlanta, the best record the Braves ever had after 24 games, 18-6 in 1982 and again in 1997. There'll only be 1 game off that pace if they hold on and win here. Trying to go 10 games over 500 already. Good start to the 9th inning for John Rocker. He strikes out Pokey Reese, 1 gone. And that'll bring up Sean Casey. The pinch hit for Graves.
Shot him a couple of breaking balls, but when he really needed to make a pitch, went right after him, about high outer part. This ball club, Pete, I think more dimensional, more ways of doing things than some of the other Braves club, because I know the stolen base totals are up. A lot of doubles, good batting average. It just seems more versatile in its offensive attack.
Casey 1 for 7 in the series, 366 on the year. His first pinch hit appearance of the season.
This kid can hit. A lot of Mike Hargrove's habits. Remember Mike Hargrove, we used to call him the human rain delay, because settles in, same thing, then would tug at the back, pants and the shirt, adjust the glove. Casey does it a little more rapidly than Hargrove did.
0-2.
Watch this pre-swing routine. Left foot in the back of the batter's box. Adjust. Left foot in, right foot will be out. Tap, touch, and go.
Now the 0-2. Still 0-2 on Casey. And he does it between every pitch.
What if we had a ritual like that between every... Okay, I'm going to the back. I'll be back in a minute. Everybody has, though, just little things, and I'll bet you for most people, if you ask them, they don't know they're doing it. It's just a ritual that you develop over years of being a hitter.
A couple of check swing foul balls during this at bat for Sean Casey. It's still 0-2.
Boy, he has a lot of the mannerisms of Mike Hargrove. And some of those are Boog Powell, too.
Another 0-2 pitch from Rocker. Struck him out. Tied him up with a high inside fastball, and Rocker's got the first 2 outs. 5 strikeouts here in the night. That's 12 strikeouts for Braves pitching today.
I didn't see the radar gun on this one, but it is in a perfect 2-strike spot. Right in under the hands. That's a no-chance heater.
1 out to go. Mike Cameron 0 for 4. He has struck out 3 times today. He's 0 for 11 now in the series. 1 ball, no strikes. Rocker behind now, 2-0.
If you ask John Rocker, he'll tell you this is a pitcher's park.
Very impressive numbers. And that misses. Ball 3, 3-0. Dangerous man, Barry Larkin, waiting on deck. And he loses Cameron on 4 pitches.
This is one thing that I think you're going to see John Rocker correct. We've seen it a number of times where he'd get bang, bang, 2 quick outs and then have somebody get on from him. You mentioned a dangerous man, Barry Larkin. A dangerous man who's desperate for a hit, too.
0 for 4 today, 0 for 10 in the series. 184 batting average now for the year. 2 men out, runner at first, 9th inning. Braves up by 2. Five straight have missed.
Kind of like to see Andrew Jones shade a little bit more to right center, and I know Brian Jordan is almost straight away in right, but Rocker, the way he's throwing, Larkin's pretty sure, I'm pretty sure he's going to hit it that way.
There's a strike at the knees. 1 ball, 1 strike. Well, he's hit almost everything in this series that way. He hasn't pulled anything.
And you have a guy throwing harder than anybody he's faced.
One ball, one strike. Crowd of 42,000 plus. Most of them are still here. Trying to get that one final out. The 1-1. In the air to left. He pulled that one, but not far enough. Gerald Williams is there. He's got it. And the Braves have swept the Cincinnati Reds. Rocker saves it for Odalis Perez, who posts his first career win in the major leagues. 5-3 Braves is your final.
And how appropriate is it that Gerald Williams makes the last putout, because he's our AutoZone player of the game. Not so much for his defense, but for those offensive numbers. He got the game started for the Braves off on a good note in the first inning. A double just inside the bag. He would eventually score run number 1, and he provided what's the difference in the ball game with 1 out in the 4th inning. A home run in the